Hi students, this is Miss Thompson talking to you from my screencast here. Just want to let you know a little bit about how this works. I'm going to talk you through this PowerPoint. If you come to a slide that has an activity or something for you to do, just pause the screencast, do what you need to do, and then you can hit play again. And obviously you can go backwards or forwards as you need to. Okay, so here we go, Advanced Poetry. This is your first lesson. What I need you to do today before you start is take Wednesday's review quiz. That's in the folder in the classroom if you didn't grab it. Do the review quiz before you go any further just to make sure you kind of remember all of the basic stuff you were supposed to learn from your pre-test. So go ahead, do that now. Now that your quiz is done and your memory is all refreshed, the next thing I'm going to have you do is just take a minute or two or three and look up the following terms. There's 5 of them listed below. In your textbook, there's some information on page 294 you can use, and then there's also a glossary of literary terms in the back of your book. The skinny pink section starts on R1. So add them to your notes so you have them as a reference. And when you're done taking your notes, you can continue. Okay, so now you have some notes, and what we need to do is make sure you understand what you just wrote down. So first we're going to talk about rhyme scheme. We're going to focus a lot on poetry here. And rhyme scheme is kind of the first thing we think of when we think of poetry, are all those fun rhymes. So here's your guided practice. I'm going to show you a poem that you may know. This is by a famous guy named Dr. Seuss, and it's from Green Eggs and Ham, and it's just going to be an example of how you mark rhyme scheme when you're looking at a poem. So basically what you do is you'll look at the ending of each line generally. I'm going to use my awesome little pen here, and look for sets of words that rhyme. Pretty easy. So box and fox in this case rhyme, so they would get labeled A. So that's the first rhyme, they're the A rhyme. Then you go down to the next one, and you'll see we have house and mouse, and they rhyme. And so you would label them, anyone? That's right, you label it with a B. And then it goes on and on. So we've got there, where, ham, am, and they all rhyme, so those are your rhyme pairs. And that's how you would mark the rhyme scheme. Pretty easy, okay? Take a minute now and just real quick mark the rhyme scheme of the poem on your handout, again the one you got from your classroom folder. And then once you've got it all filled out, hopefully it'll be pretty easy, you can check and see if you got the right answers. So go do that now. And here are the answers, pretty straightforward, so hopefully you figured that out. So that's how we mark rhyme scheme. You look for the ending words that rhyme. Okay, so here's the tricky part. Poetry that rhymes is nice, but the real important part when you're digging into poetry is more having to do with the rhythm of the poetry. And if you're musical, you kind of understand rhythm a little bit in music. And it's kind of similar with poetry. And when you're looking at rhythm in poetry, you look at something called meter. And you took some notes on meter. And this is how we do it. If you have a line like this, it says, "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?" When you're looking at meter, you're listening for stressed and unstressed syllables. So it helps to read it out loud because you can hear the parts of the words you're stressing. In this case, it would sound like this, and I'll over-exaggerate it for you. It would sound like this. "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?" Now, obviously, you don't read it like that, but those are the parts of the sentence that are stressed. And you'll notice it goes every other syllable. And that's pretty common, and that's mostly what you guys will see, so you can kind of watch out for that. Here's another one. This is from Emily Dickinson. That last one was from Shakespeare. And Emily wrote, "She dealt her pretty words like blades." Don't you love that? And the stress there would be, she dealt her pretty words like blades. Again, notice every other syllable. Okay? Now, If you're a musician, you know that your music is divided into bars. It's divided into section and there's a certain number of beats in each bar. And it's the same for poetry. We divide it into bars, only they're called feet. In poetry, they're called feet. And each foot has a certain number of stressed or unstressed syllables. So if you're looking at our first sentence, we would divide it like this. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? And each pair, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed, goes into a bar or a foot. And so in this case, we have 5 of them. Okay, and that's where you start to get the rhythm. If every line has 5 feet and every foot goes unstressed, stressed, then that poem starts to develop a rhythm. So that's why that's important. Here's our other one. You can see how that one was divided into 4. So pause it now if you need to take a closer look at it. If this makes sense to you, then we will move on. Iambic pentameter. Here's a fun word to throw around at the dinner table. Iambic pentameter is just a fancy kind of meter in a poem, and it's the most common form of meter, and it's really the only one we're going to learn. So here's how the word is kind of broken down. So you looked up the definition, so hopefully this is familiar. If you don't remember this, go look at your notes. When you have a pair of unstressed and stressed syllables, it's called an iamb. So if you look back, see, one is an iamb. Shall I? Unstressed, stressed, okay? When a poet uses this as his or her meter, it's called iambic meter, which makes sense. Unstressed, stressed, that's their rhythm. Now, when there are 5 of those, you guessed it, it becomes a pentameter because penta means 5, right? Like a pentagram or the pentagon. So 5 iambs, 5 feet in a line makes it iambic pentameter. There you have it, okay? Take a minute to make sure you understand that. Talk to your classmates if you need to, and then we'll move on. Okay, so here's some guided practice for you to look at real quick. So we have 5 feet is an iambic pentameter. Here it is. You can see how it's broken down. Unstressed, stressed, and each pair of unstressed and stressed syllables. Let me do this here. This would be, this is the mark for unstressed. You put a little U over it. And stressed, you put a line. My little pen isn't very accurate. This is unstressed, stressed. So here are your iambs. I am. And there are how many? There are 5. Okay? So that's how you do it. Now it's your turn. Now you have some more work on that handout. It'll be your homework for today. Good luck. It's going to seem a little confusing. If you need help, there's another screencast on my website. If you want to look it up at home, it'll walk you right through it, give you the answers and everything you need. So that's due tomorrow. Thanks for listening, and make sure you get all your work done, kids. Thanks.